Welcome to Ole Walls House. It's me. It's your man. It's your main man. It's Ole Walls. And I'm back with you for episode 127 of Ole Walls House. We got a fun show coming your way. Before we get there, though, let's do a little housekeeping if we could. If you guys could you please rate, review, comment, subscribe, and share? Let your friends know. That's really helpful in helping the pod out. So if you guys could do that, I'd really appreciate it. Also, if you're looking for 20% off Liquid IV, you know where to go. You go to liquidiv.com or the link in the show notes below while it still lasts. The promo code is OWH, O for Ole, W for Walls, H for House. You know the deal. Better hydration than water alone. 3 times the electrolytes of your leading sports drink. All the flavors. I like the Concord Grape. I like the easy little package. And, they believe in equitable access to water worldwide. Over 40 million servings given out. So, like I said, fun show coming up. I got Ethan E. Sexton here to talk a little baseball with us, a little mid-season check-in. Then I'm going to talk about some golf, the Memorial Tournament. We got another OWH albums, and of course, my passing thoughts. And we talk about the crooks in the world that is the United States government. So, without any further ado, let's dive right in. Joining me now for a little mid-season update to the MLB season, the one, the only, Mr. Ethan E. Sexton.
What's up, Wally? How are you, man? Thanks for having me back.
Time to write this time.
Attaboy.
How you doing, E?
I'm doing well, Wally. How about yourself?
Well, I'm way more excited about this year of baseball than I thought I was going to be at the start of the year. Cleveland had come off a not so great year last year, and you weren't painting the rosiest picture for me, and I don't think you're to be blamed for that. I don't think anybody really saw what was coming with Cleveland, so it's been an exciting year for me. We'll get to them in just a second, but why don't we start with your Phillies, man? Like they're on fire. It's best record in the bigs, if I'm not mistaken, or are they tied with? I
think the Yankees might be a game up on them now.
The Yankees have played one more game.
The Phillies didn't play last night, and they don't play tonight because they're in London.
Yep.
So they play tomorrow as we're recording this, and Sunday in London against the Mets. So 2 more wins coming out of there because the Mets are abysmal. So, so that'd be good. But yeah, the Phillies, crushing it, man.
Before we dive to the Phillies, because I don't think there'll be much beyond this question with the Mets. But why are the Mets so bad?
They're just bad, dude. Their owner is rich but clueless about baseball. So last year they tried to go all in. They gave 2 40-year-old pitchers these humongous deals, and then they basically paid their salaries to trade them to other teams to get some mid-level prospects who are really not that good. So now they're retooling or rebuilding, as they like to say. They gave out really bad contract to Brandon Nimmo, paid him way too much money. I don't know. They're just not that good right now. The scary thing is they have potential because their owner is the richest in baseball. He's just clueless right now. They hired the GM David Stearns, who built the Brewers into what the Brewers are right now. So he knows what he's doing. So if the Mets figure out what they're if they can figure some things out as far as the team building goes, they have the potential to be very scary down the line, but it's going to be a few years. They're not in a good place right now.
Yeah, Cleveland benefited from them trying to make kind of a big splashy move a couple years ago and turn the Lindor trade into a couple nice pieces. Jimenez being one of them, and they actually got I'm losing his name, the shortstop that they had then traded away last year.
Yeah,
Rosario.
Med Rosario, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so, that trade, Lindor was great last year. He's just off to a really bad start this year, so there's still some hope with Lindor. It's more that they paid some exorbitant salaries last year for 2 old past their prime pitchers, and it didn't work out, and just some stuff like that. But, Pete Alonso's going to be a free agent after this year, and he's not had a great season, so I don't know what they're going to do there, but we'll see.
Yep. Yeah. So your Phillies, man. Talk to me about your Phillies. They're lighting the league on fire. They're off to an incredible start. Why?
There's not really much to say. other, like than what we said preseason when we talked. They're just a really good team. The difference this year is that they've gotten off to an incredible start, whereas the last 2 years they got off to really slow starts. So I mean, they're basically the exact same team they were last year. I mean, the core of this team is the same, right? It's just that they've gotten off to a much better start to the season, and that's got them, in first place in the division and fighting for the best record in baseball. So not really too much has changed over the last couple of years. It's just the start's been incredible. They're second in runs scored to the Yankees, sixth in home runs in the league, sixth in team average. They've allowed the fewest home runs. Their pitching's been phenomenal. Fewest home runs allowed, second in team ERA, first in strikeouts. So they're just really good, man. It's not really that surprising because they should be good. So this is kind of what you expect from them. It's just that, getting off to this start this year gives them a great chance to win this division.
Yeah, and it seems like not that it's their fault or anything. I'm not trying to paint this in a bad way, but they've benefited by the fact that the Braves have had some injury concerns, and that there doesn't really seem to be too deep of a I don't think the rest of that division seems to be too deep. It was kind of a 2-horse race to begin with, and now with the Braves kind of going through some injury woes, they've opened 7.5 games at this point, and then even if the Braves are making a miraculous comeback, the Braves are up 6 games in the wild card. The NL doesn't seem to have a lot of depth to it.
No, I mean, the Braves, the thing with their injuries, so losing Strider, losing Acuna, that's going to cap their ceiling, obviously. But this is still a really good team, elite level team. They're 35-25, 10 games over 500 without arguably their 2 best players. So that kind of shows you how good of a team they are. One thing about the Braves, too, is their offense really hasn't gotten off to a great start, even with it when Acuna was there. Acuna wasn't performing. Now, last year was like a record-breaking season that we may never see again from a player. But still, he wasn't really performing up to his expectations. Austin Riley and Matt Olson have been really slow out of the gates this year. So offensively, the Braves haven't been great this year, but they're still 10 games over 500. They're going to cakewalk into the playoffs. There's no doubt about that. And this is still a team that's really good, that can beat any team on any given day. They're going to be a threat in the playoffs to, make the World Series. I firmly believe that. It's just that losing Strider and losing Acuna, kind of caps their ceiling and their upside here. But they're still a great team. I mean, they're gonna waltz into the playoffs. Like I said, the National League, as of recording today, has only 4 teams above 500. So not really too much of a concern. Like, the Braves are going to make the playoffs. They're a threat to win any series they play in the playoffs. They might have to plug a few holes, between now and the trade deadline. But still a really good team. But yeah, that's definitely helped the Phillies. The Braves getting off to a little bit of a slower start and then losing 2 great players for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Marcell Ozuna is still one of the top players in the league. I mean, second in the league in RBIs, has 18 home runs, a solid number of walks, not Aaron Judge level of walks or anything like that, but 1,000 OPS. Like, they've still got some dudes on that team to kind of echo what you're saying there.
No doubt. And Ozuna's been carrying the load. And then if Riley and Matt Olson start playing to the back of their baseball cards, their offense is going to be just fine.
What do you think it is about the rest of the NL? Kind of just the way it goes sometimes, just some down years, some teams kind of caught in, a reload or rebuild stretch. I mean, like you said, only 4 teams over 500. The Braves are the only team not leading the division that's over 500. The Cubs are just a game under, and then the Padres, the other team in the wild card, a couple of games under. Is it just, it just happens that way sometimes, or is there anything, bigger afoot with those kind of teams?
Yeah, I just think there's a couple solid teams that are off to, slow starts. Honestly, I think the Diamondbacks and Padres are both pretty good teams that are both under 500 right now that could make a run. The Giants, I think, are a solid team. I don't know if they're going to end up making the playoffs, but I think they have an outside shot at making the playoffs for sure. They're under 500. So there's 3 teams in the NL West, that are solid teams that are just off to slow starts that I think can improve. The Mets, I think, are awful. The Marlins, I think, are awful. The Rockies, I think, are awful. Every other team, I think, is halfway decent. Like, the Nationals are not going to make the playoffs, but they're not abysmal. They're just rebuilding. So they have some good talent on the team, and they have some good talent that's going to debut this year. And they're plucky, they're scrappy. They make you earn your wins. So I don't think they're an awful team. I just don't think they're very good either. Yeah. And then every team in the National League Central, like the Brewers, I think are legit pretty good. They've shown that to this point this year. The Cubs and the Reds and even the Pirates, I think, are solid teams. Same with the Cardinals, solid teams. I think any one of them, could go on a little bit of a run. The Pirates, they've got Paul Skeens and Jared Jones, these two rookie stud starting pitchers. Their starting pitching rotation looks pretty good these days. They just need offense. They don't have a lot of offense. The Reds are lacking consistency. The Cardinals are old. But the Cubs kind of are not playing well of late. But all four of them are solid teams that could make some noise, make a run a little bit, at a wild card spot. I just think a lot of these teams got off to really bad starts.
Mm-hmm. I mean, also, there's about give or take 100 games left in the season. So a lot can happen still. I mean, we're just barely over like a third of the way through the season as we're talking right now. So, I mean, it's not like a team that's, the Cubs 31-32 can't, all of a sudden you turn around 50 games later and they're not 61-52 or something like that. I mean, that's not a crazy thought for something like that to happen.
Exactly. There's still plenty of time for, these teams to kind of right the ship. And I think a lot of them will. It's just weird right now how there's only 4, above 500 in the National League.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, the as we kind of switch over to my Cleveland Guardians here, I mean, there's 3 teams in the division in the AL Central that are over 500, and right now 3 teams slated to be in the AL playoffs, which is pretty wild because I don't think we had kind of thought that was going to be the way it was at the start of the year when you and I talked. We kind of mentioned that the AL Central was going to be like a one playoff team division really for the most part, and it was kind of going to be the Twins and maybe Cleveland could get up there. So let's go to Cleveland. What's going on with my Guardians? I mean, they're scoring runs. Jose Ramirez is leading the league in RBIs.
Yeah.
Josh Naylor's kind of slumping right now, but had been off to a good start. They've gotten kind of an out-of-nowhere bump from David Fry, who had a May that was awesome. I mean, one of the best players in the league through May. So doing all this without Bieber on the mound, he goes down after a couple games. So talk to me about them. What have you seen with them? What's been kind of the secret sauce for them?
Yeah, I think the offense is just way better than we thought it was going to be, right? Like, we knew they had a superstar in Jose Ramirez and some good solid players in, Josh Naylor, Steven Kwan, Andres Jimenez. And, their offense has just been way better than expected. I mean, they're third in runs scored per game as of today. And, they're above average. They're an above average team in home runs, slugging, and OPS, which I didn't expect, coming into the year. I think when we talked preseason, we said, this team's got the pitching depth always to make a great run. And, they do, man. Even without Bieber, the starting pitching has been really great this year. A guy like Ben Lively, who came over from Korea back in the league, he's been really great for them, exceeding expectations. And I think they have an elite bullpen. Emmanuel Clase is the best closer in baseball. Hunter Gaddis, converted starter. He's been lights out for him out of the bullpen. So the pitching is pretty much what we thought it was going to be, what would carry them. But the offense just coming through has made them a legit, contender and, division favorite. So really, I think that's been the biggest thing, is just the offense being a lot better than we expected. I think they could still use maybe one more outfielder. I think they were probably hoping it was going to be Chase DeLauder, who just unfortunately hasn't been able to stay healthy this year. And I think they could use a catcher potentially, Wally. Bo Naylor just hasn't really developed this year to what a lot of people think he will end up being. He just hasn't been that to this point this year. And, Austin Hedges just can't hit elite defensively. But can't hit. David Fry, he's chipping in, like you said, though. So maybe he's the solution. I'm not sure. Or maybe they look to go on the trade market and, snag a catcher and maybe an outfielder. But not a lot. I think they would have to address on the trade market necessarily because, they're not going to – typically they're not going to be a team that goes out and makes a huge splash at the deadline, but they don't really need to the way they're playing. They can add some pieces here and there just to improve things at spots where they're weak, and I think keep this thing rolling. It's the offense is the biggest surprise with Cleveland for me for sure.
Do you think they need to look at adding a starting pitcher? The pitching's been pretty good. I mean, you mentioned Lively, Tanner Bybee's been solid. Tristan McKenzie's kind of starting to kind of round back into form, but I mean, down at the 5 spot in the pitching rotation, the starting pitching rotation's a little weak. Xavier Curry's been kind of spot pitching there. It does just seem like the end of the rotation's a little soft. Do you think that's something that, you get into the playoffs and, you come out of one series and, you don't always have to get to your 4 or 5, but if you have a long series to start and then you quick turn around into the next series, you're kind of reaching for some of those guys sometimes. Do you foresee that as being like an issue, come playoff time or, come the end of the year when your guys are starting to get on their last legs and you're looking for a little bit more out of the starting pitchers? And I know it's not just a Cleveland thing. It's a league-wide thing. I mean, you don't see the starting pitchers really go much past the 6th inning that much, but it does feel like Cleveland barely gets into the 6th inning at all. And it just feels like one more starting pitcher would really solidify that rotation because the bullpen is so strong. You don't really have to get a ton out of them, but do you see that as a need and something that they really need to address? And then the big question comes down, will they? I mean, it's got to be the right situation. Like you said, they're not gonna mortgage the farm system to go get a guy for 1 year. It's just not the way Cleveland does it.
Yeah, I think they could definitely trade for like a back end of the rotation piece because, Logan Allen, Xavier Curry, Carlos Carrasco, none of them have been very good there at the back end. And McKenzie's been kind of suspect as well. So I think they could trade for a depth piece, maybe a guy like an Eric Fedde from the White Sox who's pitched pretty well this year for them, a guy that can eat some innings, somebody like that. But I think the other thing too, Wally, is, you're going to get a boost at some point because Gavin Williams should be back, in the somewhat near future, I would think. I know he just made a rehab start on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So he's working his way back. So he's going to take one of those spots in the rotation. As long as he's healthy, I think that'll help. He was pretty good last year as a rookie. And then, you get him and maybe you trade for one more piece, just a guy who can eat some innings even, and give you a 4 ERA, something like that. Doesn't have to be elite. I think that's two things that could definitely help them out rotation-wise for sure.
Yeah, and James Karinchak is still out there. I haven't seen anything about him lately, but another little bolster to the bullpen. Not that the bullpen's in dire need. I mean, you mentioned Hunter Gaddis, and you mentioned Clase kind of returning to form as one of, if not the best closers in the league, but a guy you didn't mention, Nick Sandelin, who's kind of been like the guy who they bring in like every shitty situation. Like anytime there's a couple runners on in like the 5th or 6th inning when the starting pitcher's, at the end of his rope, they roll out Nick Sandelin. He's been huge for him and really gotten him out of a lot of jams. So, yeah, I mean, I just think about, I kind of forgot about Gavin Williams because they pushed back his, he had a little bit of a bump in the road back in, I think, end of April, early May when they thought they might get him back a little sooner. And then, yeah, you do mention that outfield. They've brought up Daniel Sheeman, who is kind of a utility player, and they've also brought up Kyle Manzardo, who's after a rough, first week or two has kind of started to find a little something. I think he'd hit in 10 straight games last time. Average isn't huge, but he's good power when he's hitting them. I mean, he's not just hitting bloopers in there. I mean, he's ripping stuff to the gap. So that's been huge for him too. But yeah, it feels like an outfielder and maybe a starting pitcher from, my dumb, view of the team could really, really help them. I was looking at all the standings, and it's something that's kind of been, since MLB has moved to the new playoff setup. Do you think there's a disadvantage to being one of the two teams that gets the bye, just because of the way baseball works and that you're playing so often, and then you go to the playoffs and then you get the bye and you're off for a week, and that's just something you don't deal with throughout the year?
I don't think it's perfect, but I don't accept it as an excuse. either. Like a lot of Braves fans were complaining last year that they had to sit around and wait while the Phillies played a series. Well, they also got to throw Spencer Strider twice in the first 3 games because of the way the off days worked. So I don't really feel that bad about that. I mean, I don't think it helps for your hitters that they have to sit like a week. You know what I mean? So I don't think it's perfect by any stretch. But you also get to line up your pitching exactly the way you want it.
Yeah.
So I don't accept it as an excuse. And I'm not going to sit here and say that it's like the best thing ever, because I do think, baseball, like other sports, you want that routine of playing more often than that. But I also don't think it's a legit excuse. I think people use it as an excuse way too liberally, honestly. So it's not a perfect thing, but I don't think it's as big a deal as folks who complain about it make it out to be either.
Gotcha. Before we move on to like individual players, what teams, as we've kind of focused mostly on both of our favorite teams here, what other teams do you think are for real in the league, and what teams may be pretenders? I do have a little worry that maybe Cleveland is a pretender, but like, what teams do you think are for real, and what teams do you think are pretenders?
Yeah, I think Cleveland's proven that they're for real. Maybe not to this extent, but definitely a team that can, should and could make the playoffs. The Phillies and Braves are legit. The Brewers are legit. Dodgers are legit. All the division leaders, right? So Cleveland legit, Yankees, Orioles, both legit. The interesting thing about the AL West is, Seattle's leading the division, the only team over 500. They're over 500 by 8 games. I don't think they're that good. Their pitching is elite, but their offense is pretty suspect. I think they've benefited from the fact that Texas and Houston both got off to really poor starts. In the AL Central, the Twins are a little worse so far than we thought, but I think they're still a good team, have a legit chance of making the playoffs. And the Royals, I think, are the surprise really of the league to this point, because they've really outperformed pretty much where everyone thought they would be. They signed some pitching in the offseason, but it wasn't guys where you're like, wow, like they're aces, but Seth Lugo has pitched like an ace, and Michael Wacha has pitched pretty well. So that just raised the floor for Kansas City. It lifted their ability to be able to compete on a nice nightly basis because they upgraded their starting pitching. And, they've got an absolute superstar on their hands at shortstop with Bobby Witt, who's a guy, that I think I said preseason was a legit MVP candidate and still is. He's really lived up to the hype, and their offense has been solid around him, so they've really outperformed. I thought they'd be better this year, pushing 500, and to this point they've exceeded that, with 11 games over 500. So I think all those teams are legit for the most part, and really like, there's only like 5 teams in the league that I think are going to outright be sellers at this point and that are just awful. And that's, Colorado and Miami in the National League, and Chicago, the White Sox, the Angels, and Oakland. I just think there's only 5 teams that for sure are going to be sellers at the deadline at this point.
How do you think that affects the trade deadline? Because the way I read that is that with so few teams being sellers, and it seems there's going to be kind of a lot of teams hovering around like the playoff mix, do you think that makes the market obviously it shrinks the market, so do you think we see a little less happen at the trade deadline because teams will have to give up more to get a piece? Or do you think we'll see more happen because teams will feel like they have to do something and there's only so many options, so they will be more aggressive and they'll go out and get all sorts of pieces if they can?
Yeah, I meant to say the Mets, too. The Mets are absolutely going to be sellers. But to answer your question, I think it makes it a little trickier because, like, a team like Colorado, for example, what do they really have to sell? Not much. Like, no one's – because they're rebuilding, so a lot of their exciting players that people might want to trade for are players they're going to want to build around. Ezekiel Tovar, their young shortstop, for example. A guy like that, they're not going to want to trade him because he's a guy they're going to want to build around. They'd love to trade Chris Bryant, I'm sure, but nobody's going to take Chris Bryant. You know what I mean? So it makes it tricky in that sense. But I think what we could end up seeing is, those teams will sell off pieces. Could Pete Alonso get traded because the Mets are bad? He's going to be a free agent. Maybe. Garrett Crochet, the White Sox control him for a few more years, but do they want to cash in while he's performing well? A guy like that could go. The Marlins have, Jesus Luzardo, and their closer Tanner Scott are two guys that could go from that team. But what we might end up seeing is, deals like last year, like, for example, one we saw with the Indians, where they were in the mix, but they didn't really believe they were going to compete to a high level. So they traded a guy like Aaron Savali to Tampa Bay, and got Kyle Manzardo. So we could see some deals like that where teams don't fully believe that they're contenders this year, despite being in the race, with the extra wild card spots and stuff. And we could see them just say, hey, we're still going to sell a couple pieces. We're going to build more towards next year. And we could also potentially see some contender trades where, hey, I'm going to trade you my strength for your strength or something like that. And, teams fill holes that way as well. So it's going to be interesting. We've still got some time before we get to the deadline. So a lot can change. We could see some more clear sellers make their way into the mix as well.
Yep. Yeah, and as we kind of transition over to talking individual players, I mean, you mentioned Bobby Witt. Cleveland just played Kansas City, so got a firsthand look at him, and I just pulled up his stats. I mean, everything is on an upward swing with him. I mean, his batting average is up this year, his OBP, his slugging percentage. I mean, he's already way outpaced his RBI total, outpaced the RBI. His trajectory is outpacing where he was last year. Home runs down a little bit, but I mean, everything else. I mean, this guy seems like he's going to be a stud for a long time to come. Who else do you see as guys who are really, really standout players here? I mean, obviously, I mentioned Jose Ramirez. There's Aaron Judge. There's Marcell Ozuna. Is there anybody that we should know about that we probably don't?
I mean, not really, right? The guys that are standing out are pretty much the guys you would expect to stand out. I mean, the top 5 in the AL MVP odds right now, Judge and Soto, both having outstanding years. Soto's dealing with some sort of forearm issue that we're not exactly clear what it is or if it's going to cost him any time, as of us talking this morning. But Bobby Witt, just absolute stud. Going to be for a long time, like you said. Jose, J-Ram, just having a great season, man. Gunnar Henderson, with Baltimore, I think he's been absolutely incredible. Kind of him and Witt are the guys that people were expecting to ascend, into this top tier player, and they've absolutely done so far. So I think, in the AL, those are the guys that have really stood out so far on the hitting side. And then in the National League, Mookie Betts, Ohtani, Harper, Freddie Freeman, guys like that just have been what we expect them to be, right? So they're kind of the odds-on favorites for the MVP there. And then on the reverse side, a guy like Corbin Carroll, who was the Rookie of the Year last year, he's having a down season. Julio Rodriguez was the AL Rookie of the Year 2 years ago, not having a great season. But guys that should, end up by the end of this season, end up playing, back to their level. So I think those are kind of the standout guys there. You look at the Cy Young odds, Tarek Skubal for Detroit has been, he's the leader in the clubhouse right now, I think in the AL, along with Corbin Burns. So Skubal was a guy maybe people didn't know that well just because he played for Detroit. Although when he came back from injury last year, he was pretty lights out. So he's just continued that into this season. The National League, Strider getting hurt kind of opened up the Cy Young a little bit. I think at the beginning of the year, I might have said I didn't have time to go back and look, but I think I might have picked Zach Wheeler for NL Cy Young, Wally.
I think you did.
I know I didn't pick Strider because he just gives up a lot of loud contact. Gives up too many runs last year, strikes tons of people out. So eventually he's going to figure out how to not give up hard contact, and he'll win some Cy Youngs, I imagine, as long as he can come back healthy from this Tommy John surgery. So I think Wheeler's the leader for NL Cy Young, and as long as he keeps pitching the way that he has been so far this year, I think he's going to end up hopefully winning the award. He deserves it. I think he deserved it a couple of years ago. So I really like Wheeler. Tyler Glasnow's been great for the Dodgers, so he's another one. And then, Shota Imanaga for the Cubs. He's 30 years old. Came out of Japan. He's technically a rookie. He's going to lead the Rookie of the Year race in the NL right now. He's in the mix for Cy Young. He had a little bit of a hiccup 2 starts ago, but he's been great so far this year. So he's the odds-on favorite for Rookie of the Year. I think AL Rookie of the Year is wide open. Luis Gil for the Yankees has been elite. He's probably the leader right now. Mason Miller, closer for the Oakland, has been great. The interesting thing with the Rookie of the Year races is that none of the hitters have really lived up to what we thought they would be to this point. So that's kind of made those races a little bit muddy, in my opinion.
Gotcha. This was one thing I forgot to ask about when we were talking about the teams. We're seeing in a lot of the divisions, I mean, all the AL divisions, Cleveland has the smallest division lead with 4 games. Then when you go over to the NL, the smallest division lead is the Central with 5.5 games. Do you see any of those races tightening up throughout the summer into the fall, or do we kind of see those kind of space out a little bit? I mean, there's, the Yankees and Baltimore's 4.5. That one seems like one that might tighten. The Phillies and the Braves you could possibly see tightening. And then like Cleveland's, I mean, Kansas City's right there, but like you said, Kansas City was a team that maybe is a year ahead of schedule. I mean, you see teams like that can maybe get hot and then kind of dwindle off. What do you see going forward in those races? Do you see any race really tightening up and really being like a dogfight coming to the dog days of summer?
Yeah, I think the Central for both leagues will end up being fairly tight all year long because I don't think there's like maybe the Brewers because their offense, kind of like Cleveland, their offense has been a lot better than expected. So maybe Cleveland and the Brewers can kind of keep out to these leads they're at now, but I think those 2 divisions should be tight, throughout the entirety of the year. I think the East in both is 2-horse races. I think the Rays can creep back to get into contention for a wild card, but I think they just got off to too slow of a start. So I think the AL East is a 2-horse race between the Yankees and Orioles. I think the NL East is 3 bad teams and the Braves and the Phillies, so 2-horse race there. The Dodgers are going to win the West. We knew that coming into the season, and then the slow starts for the other teams just kind of confirmed that. The Dodgers are going to win the West. But I think the Padres, the Diamondbacks, and the Giants will be in the mix for the wild card. And then I think the American League West will get tighter because I truly believe so. The A's and the Angels are bad. They're not going to be in contention. The Mariners have the pitching where they can continue to win at this level, but they need help offensively. I think they'll end up trying to trade for some. And I think the Rangers and the Astros are going to be in the mix. They just both got off to really slow starts. But I think they're both good teams. So I think the AL West could end up becoming a little tighter as the season goes on along here as well.
Yep. It's interesting in that kind of with the new baseball scheduling that they've kind of done the last couple of years where you play your division opponents a little less and you're kind of spread out and you play more from the other league. Obviously, you're always going to have the benefit if the other teams in your division are bad. You still play them more than you play the other teams, and you have the advantage of them just not pushing you in the standings. But you don't get the benefit of playing them as many times. I think they're down from playing division opponents like 19 to 20 times a year, down to like 12 to 14. So you lose a like the Phillies are losing a couple of games against some of those shitty teams in their division and kind of going elsewhere. So I don't know that means anything, but I was thinking of that as you were talking about all that.
Yeah, it just makes it harder if you're behind to come back, I think, too, because you don't get to play the team ahead of you as much and win those head-to-head games. Yep. So I think that makes it a little bit tricky as well.
There you go. There's some good insight onto why it actually matters instead of my just mindless rambling about it.
You're on the right page, buddy. You had it going.
Is there anything that we've missed today? Like, is there something we should be talking about that we're not?
Not really. I'll just throw a couple, potential big-name trade targets that could be available. I think Pete Alonso from the Mets, because they're going to be sellers, he's going to be a free agent. Makes sense that he might be on the trade market. Same with Paul Goldschmidt. If the Cardinals can't kind of get themselves back into the thick of the wild card races, he's a free agent after this year, so he could be on the market. I'm pretty sure the Astros will end up becoming good, and I don't expect them to be sellers. But if they really fall off the pace, I think Alex Bregman, who's a free agent after this year, could be available. And then, the White Sox are definitely going to be sellers. So, like, guys like Tommy Pham are definitely going to get traded. Guys that are going to be free agents are going to go from that team. But the big name for their team is really Garrett Crochet. I think he's moved into a full-time starter's role this year, and he's been great. So I wonder, they have a couple years of control left on him. So I don't know if they're going to trade him or not, but they might want to strike while the iron's hot because they're going to be bad. They need to go full rebuild mode. And if they go full rebuild mode, Luis Robert could also be a guy they'd want to trade. Although most reports say he's the one guy that they really want to keep and build around for the future. The Marlins, like I said, Jesus Luzardo and Tanner Scott. Luzardo, I'd like to see him get traded to the Orioles. There was some chatter about that in the preseason. I think he'd be a perfect fit there. The Marlins need offensive pieces. They're deep in their rotation moving into the next few years. They'll get Sandy Alcantara back next year, for example. So they need offense, and that's what the Orioles have in spades is hitting prospects. So that could make some sense. The one kind of off the radar a little bit is could Toronto, if they really fall out of the mix because they're not performing that well, could they listen to offers on Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette?
Okay.
Because they're both free agents after next season. Now, there's no real intention from the team that they want to do that. And neither guy has really performed up to the levels expected of them when they were prospects. But it's potentially, if they really fall out of the race, maybe they would listen to offers on them. So those are kind of some of the big name trade pieces that could be on the market as we head into the deadline here.
Gotcha. Here's an interesting one. Again, this is a small market team that's not known for being splashy. What do the Pirates do? They've obviously got these two young pitchers. I would imagine they're not thinking this year by any stretch of the imagination. Do they have a piece to move that they could send off somewhere to pick something up to help them for next year or maybe the year after as they've got these two hot young pitchers?
They could trade some guys, try to pick up pieces. What I'd really like them to do is trade for major league ready offensive talent because that's where they need help is on the is on offense. Like we said, they got this pretty good young pitching staff they're building up, but unfortunately, a lot of the draft picks they've made in the past just haven't panned out. Now, Paul Skeens looks like he's going to be an absolute stud. They picked him last year. But they got a guy, Henry Davis, who was a first overall pick out of Louisville. And, at the time of that draft, that a lot of people said he was the pick because they could reallocate some funds throughout the rest of that draft class. They could pay him a little less. That's why he was the 1-1 pick. But he just hasn't really panned out as a bat. And a lot of their first round picks on the offensive side of the ball just haven't panned out. So they need help offensively. I'd like them to try and add a little bit of offensive help and really build this thing going into the next few years where you've got this young pitching staff that you're not paying any money to yet. Yep. And you need to build some offense up around that so that, because when those guys pitch, you got a shot any night. But, you really need some offense to go along with it. So I'd like to see Pittsburgh be a little bit aggressive building, not trading for guys who are rentals, but guys who can be with them over the next 2 years, 3 years, and just build this offense up a little bit, give you a little more hope.
Yeah, because it just seems like their window, if they're going to ride these pitchers, is going to be the next 3-4 years while they've got them under control. So I think that covers most everything in baseball. Any what do we need to? Well, go ahead.
Do you want to talk about the MLB draft at all? Because who's got the number one pick, right?
Does Cleveland have the number one pick?
Cleveland, yeah, they've got the number one.
Okay, yeah, fill me in. See, I don't follow the MLB draft at all, so yeah, fill me in on this.
So I don't want to get too into the weeds on it either, but I've been watching the road to the College World Series. We got super regionals going on starting today. Florida State is destroying Connecticut.
Quick shout out, Alma Mater brought home the Division III
pretty cool
baseball World Series this week. The Misericordia Cougars.
Yeah. So congrats to them. Congrats to their coach. I can't remember his name.
Pete Egbert.
I went to visit. Misericordia could have been teammates with Slano if I would have known him then. I know Slano was a hell of a player there for Misericordia, and their coach, really nice guy. So enjoyed talking to him throughout the recruiting process. That was fun. So congrats to Misericordia. That's an awesome achievement.
They didn't even have a baseball field on campus when I first started going there.
I know.
Shoot, what was that?
It's been a big come up.
2011.
I mean, he's done a great job with that program, and you can say it. We can really say that it started with Slano. So,
I hate having to say that, but that group of guys was the one.
Credit where credit's due. I know he had a great career there, so that program's really come a long way. So yeah, pretty cool to see such a small university win the D3 national title. But yeah, the road to the College World Series is on here, and I think Cleveland. It's really going to depend on what they want to do, man. Do they want to spread the money around a little bit? There's really some really good players. This is not as good of a draft class on paper as the last 2 years were, but there's a few guys. Travis Bazzana, he's an Australian player who plays at Oregon State, just really well-rounded, good at everything. He's a second baseman. They could go that direction. I don't think he would take as much money as some of the other guys we're going to talk about. So Charlie Condon, he is a player from Georgia, plays third base, but he's probably going to be an outfielder. Plays outfield as well, first base probably. Hit 35 home runs this year, absolutely dominated. Probably the best player in college this year, I would say. Light tower power, so they could go that direction. Jack Caglione from Florida, they call him Jack Tani, because he is a left-handed slugger, and he also is, a really elite starting pitcher. So could be a two-way player potentially in the bigs. A team that drafts him might want to make him just into one or the other. If he goes one or the other, I would assume that he's going to be just a hitter because he's got some legit pop. Nick Kurtz is a first baseman from Wake Forest. Could be in the mix. You don't usually see a first baseman go 1-1. Spencer Torkelson, I believe, was the last one that did that. He's been demoted this year by Detroit, so may not go that direction. And then if they want to
first baseman in the Cleveland system right now, we could probably stay away from that.
Yeah, although you know how it is with baseball, it's not like football where you draft really for positional need. You just kind of end up taking best player available. And then the other hitter that I think could be in the mix is this guy J.J. Weatherholt from West Virginia. Kind of like Bazzana, he's good at everything, plays middle infield, but not necessarily elite at any one thing. And then if they want to go the pitching route and just keep that pitching factory going, there's two guys, Chase Burns, Wake Forest, absolute stud right-handed pitcher, and Hagen Smith, a left-handed starting pitcher from Arkansas. Just two absolute studs. Enjoyed watching them pitch throughout the early spring and then into this time of year. They both have been eliminated from the College World Series, but two studs. So there's some guys that you could look out for potentially for Cleveland to take at 1-1. And some good options. I don't think there's any that would, like last year's draft, a lot of people said there was like 5 guys that could have gone 1-1 in any given year. This year I think it's a little weaker, but that doesn't mean there's not going to be good players available.
I feel like baseball is so hard to, obviously there's the guys like the Skeens and, Strasburg when he was coming out and like things of that nature, but I feel like a lot of the times it's so hard to predict with baseball, the future potential.
A lot changes, although we're seeing now, I think, college guys having the ability to get to the league a lot faster than they used to, especially the college guys. But, like a guy like Bobby Witt was drafted out of high school, and he was only in the minors for 2 years, I think. So guys are getting to the league a lot faster if they prove that they deserve to be there. So that's been a good thing.
All right. Did we miss anything now? I think now that you got me up to date on that, I'm gonna have to check out a little College World Series, see what's out there for the future of the guards.
Yeah, the nice thing is that all these games are on ESPN Plus, so you can watch. I know you have ESPN Plus, I'm sure, to watch golf, so you can watch all these games on ESPN Plus. College World Series starts on Friday after this episode comes out, so yeah, check it out. It's a fun time of year. I enjoy watching the college as well as the Pro Bowl. So
nice.
Yeah, man.
Any movies we need to see while I got you? Anything coming out this summer that I should be checking out or has come out recently?
So I've watched a couple 2024 movies this week. Can you give me 1 second?
Yeah.
Let me pull up my Letterboxd account here, and I'll tell you exactly what I've been watching from 2020. Or from 2024 even. Sorry.
So back 4 years.
So 2024 movies that I have seen recently. So 2 weeks from today, or 2 weeks ago, I saw Furiosa, the new Mad Max saga. pretty good. I would say I would put it at third on my Mad Max rankings. Fury Road is just like untouchable, and I think Mad Max 2 is probably a little better than Furiosa. But enjoyed that movie; it was pretty good.
Mad Max 2 is Thunderdome, right?
No, Mad Max 2 is Mad Max 2. Why can't I think of the title? It's a lot like Fury Road. They go on a road trip. It's The Road Warrior. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Beyond Thunderdome is my least favorite Mad Max movie, but they're all worth watching. But yeah, Furiosa, that was good. Definitely worth checking out, especially if you like the Mad Max movies. Then I just watched a horror movie that came out in January of this year called Night Swim. It's basically about a haunted pool. Not great.
It sounds like a pretty bad premise.
Not great. Not the worst movie I've ever seen, but not great. But if you want to watch a 90-minute horror movie because you're bored, then go for it. It's on Peacock, but not great. I went and saw The Fall Guy yesterday. Pretty much what you'd expect from it. Just kind of a fun, not serious action movie.
High praise from my 7-year-old nephew on that one. Best movie ever, I was told.
I don't agree with his take, but if I was 7 years old, I think I'd probably feel the same way about it. It was definitely fun, worth checking out. Not that serious. And then I watched the Coen Brothers movie, although only Ethan Coen was involved in it, called Drive Away Dolls. That was all right. There's not really anything like Hitman, which is a Richard Linklater movie. Richard Linklater did Dazed and Confused, School of Rock. That's a couple of his movies. Hitman, it's got Glenn Powell in it, your boy from Top Gun Maverick. That came out on Netflix today. I'm planning to watch that on Monday, so I'll have to report back. That looks like it. I have to imagine that'll be pretty good. Good director. Glenn Powell's coming into his own as a movie star after starring in Anyone But You with Sydney Sweeney. There's Sydney Sweeney, not a great actor necessarily, but there's something about her.
Couple things.
But Hitman, I think, is going to be pretty good. I'm going to check that out. And then the only other movie I'm really interested in June is this movie called The Bike Riders.
That looks good.
Which has Tom Hardy and Austin Butler, a couple other guys. So probably going to check that out in 2 weeks, and then kind of go from there, man.
Will Austin Butler still be talking like Elvis in that movie?
Potentially. He was in Dune Part 2, and he did not sound like he did not sound like Elvis in Dune Part 2. But my man is getting on Tom Hardy's corner a little bit with some of this voice acting work, because in Dune Part 2, Did you see Dune 1 by chance?
I saw some of it. I saw it on like a plane. I need to go back and watch it because I want to watch the second one too. So
Stellan Skarsgård plays the Baron Harkonnen, who Batista's part of the family.
Yep.
And Austin Butler does his voice that Stellan Skarsgård did in the first movie flawlessly. So Austin Butler is getting on Tom Hardy's corner with the voice acting a little bit. So it's interesting to see them in the same movie. We'll have to see, if they're dueling it out with some voice work in the bike.
They're going to be dialing it the fuck up in that one against each other. I just have a feeling.
No doubt. I will shout out while we're here, though, I watched Godzilla -1 this week. Which is a Godzilla movie that was made in Japan. It's in Japanese. I think you can watch it dubbed in English, or you can watch it in Japanese with subtitles. Elite movie. I think Kevy talked about it.
I think he told me to watch. I think he texted me and told me to watch it too. And
I hadn't seen it when we did kind of our year-end review. I think the three of us highly recommend it. They've been pumping out these shitty Godzilla movies. Made in the U.S., these MonsterVerse movies, they're kind of fun, but they're shitty, right? Mm-hmm. This movie was awesome, and not awesome for a Godzilla movie, just a legit awesome movie in general. Okay. So highly recommend that. It's on Netflix. But yeah, man, I've been crushing movies. I think I am up to, I believe. Give me a sec. Let me reference the Letterboxd. In the year 2024, I have watched, I believe, 107 movies to today's date.
Damn. All new?
All new to me. Well, not necessarily. There's definitely some that I rewatched.
Some repeats.
I've watched 107 individual movies to this point of the year. So I think only like 7 or 8 that came out this year. But just, I've been crushing them just like normal.
Does that count any time you've caught the replacements on TNT at all, or?
It doesn't count it, but if it's on TNT, I'm throwing it on. Because
108. Move the count up.
Count it.
Awesome. Anything else before we wrap this up?
No, I think we're good, man. I think we're good. I appreciate you having me back on. Go Phillies. Go Guards. We'll see what happens come playoff. Maybe get back together, around playoff time or end of the season and go from there, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll definitely pencil something in for September-ish, and we'll talk to you. We may talk to you again between now and then. Who knows? But, yeah, I appreciate it as always. Thanks for being OWH's number one baseball expert here for us.
Absolutely, man. Anytime.
All right. Thanks, E. Stop me if you've heard this before. Scottie Scheffler is your winner. But for the first time, he's done it outside of the February to April stretch. Scottie Scheffler wins the Memorial Tournament, Jack's Tournament. He is the winner. Holds off Collin Morikawa. He shoots a final round 74. Not his best stuff, but holds off Collin Morikawa. Morikawa, great run at the chip at the end with a great photo. Him, pointing. Let me see if I can find it and throw it up here. But another master class from Scottie Scheffler in ball striking. Just completely strikes the shit out of it. If you look at the data golf, strokes gained approach this week 3.28 to the positive, 3.2 strokes gained tee to green. Next best on that was Adam Hadwin at 2.7 tee to green, Morikawa 2.4. All he had to do was putt just above average, 0.39, and he gets the win. So I think I heard this that last year at the Memorial, he lost roughly 8 shots, 2 shots a day putting, and lost by 1 stroke. So, again, he just has to putt average and he wins. And that's exactly what happened. It was a tough day on Sunday. Scoring average was like 75-ish, I believe. If you just go down the leaderboard, Matt Fitzpatrick gained 17 places from where he started the day with a 3 under 69. That may be low round of the day. I think, Emiliano Grillo also shot 69. He finished T27 up from T50. There were only 2 rounds in the 60s on all of Sunday. A guy I picked for the week in my fantasy golf, Keegan Bradley, he finishes the weekend. He was in 5th place going into Saturday. He shoots 78-80 on the weekend, 78-80. And only to be bested by the other guy I took. His Saturday was pretty good. He started flying up the leaderboard. Shane Lowry shoots 68 on Saturday. Follows that up with an 85 on Sunday. That included 2 double bogeys and a triple bogey on the last to cap off that stellar 85. He lost 35 places. 35. So a tough day out there. Billy Horschel shot 71 and moved up from 31st to T15. Hideki Matsuyama moved up 14 spots, shooting 70. So it was playing hard out there. Like, it was, birdies were hard to come by, bogeys were aplenty, and Collin Morikawa shooting 1 under was a very, very good round. He just couldn't quite get it done. But Scottie Scheffler again wins. He has now won 5 times, including a major, the Masters, heading to the U.S. Open. He's, I don't know if it's the first person since like Tom Watson to do that back in 1980. We can just go through the Scottie Scheffler, parade here. In the past 12 weeks, in 7 of them, Scottie Scheffler has done one of these things: won a golf tournament, produced a child, or been arrested for felonious assault of a police officer. 7 of the last 12 weeks. Pretty impressive. So if a PGA Tour player played the last 8 events that Scheffler has played, which is the Arnold Palmer, which he won, the Players, which he won, he didn't win at Houston, the Masters, which he won. Did he win RBC? No. Did he? I don't think so. Hang on. We got to double check this. Is that the one of the ones? Hold the phone. Just hold on. Don't get upset, people. Don't get upset now. Professional wins. Yeah, he did win Heritage. Of course he did. Of course he did. He won the Arnold Palmer, the Players. He did not win in Houston. Then he won the Masters. Then he won the Heritage. Now he's won Memorial. So if PGA Tour players played the last 8 events he's played, Arnold Palmer, Players, Houston, Masters, RBC Heritage, PGA Memorial, made the cut at all 8 and played them all to the field average, that player would be about +5 at the end of those 32 rounds. In that same time frame, Scottie Scheffler is minus 106. Kyle Porter with that tweet. Absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. There was another Scottie thing I thought I had in here. Oh, that was the Sky things. But just it's incredible. I mean, we're going to the U.S. Open next week here. It's U.S. Open week as you'll be listening to this, and I just don't know how I've got him. I'm gonna head over to my fantasy golf probably right after I get done recording the segment and put him in because who else are you gonna take? Scottie Scheffler. He's on fire. He drives it about as good as anybody. He's long. He's accurate. He hits his irons like an absolute fucking menace. 3.28 strokes gained approach. Next best was 1.8. Third best was Morikawa at 1.27 and Max Homa at 1.27. Wow, Max Homa gained 1.27 shots, strokes gained approach, and finished up at 4 over. Impressive performance around the green, putting, and everything else. But I mean, he's more than double better than third place, and like 40% better than second place. Just absolutely incredible. I don't know what else to say about him. And the guys he's beaten that have been in second place in this little run he's been on. At the Arnold Palmer, Wyndham Clark was in second. At the Players Championship, Wyndham Clark, Brian Harman, who plays well there, I think, at the Players generally. Xander Schauffele. At the Masters, it was Ludwig, that he won by 4, by the way. He also won the Arnold Palmer by 5. Then he won the RBC by 3 over Heath, and then he outlasts Colin Morikawa by a shot here at the Memorial. Just incredible. Just incredible stuff. There's no reason in the world to think he's not going to do it again at the U.S. Open. Hopefully we can keep the police department in check down there in Pinehurst. But yeah, just incredible stuff from Scottie Scheffler. I've just run out of incredible things to say about him. He's by far playing the best golf of anybody we've seen since Tiger Woods. Not better than Tiger Woods, but since Tiger Woods. Morikawa, good round from him. He made a great up and down on 17 to get within 1. I do have a couple more Scottie things. He's now made $24 million this year. He's averaging $1.8 million a start. So, another great performance by a player over any given year was Jordan Spieth in the year 2015. Scottie Scheffler's strokes gained is a full shot better than Jordan Spieth's that year. Oof. Wowza. A couple other golf things. There was a guy in the European Tour, the DP World Tour, at the Scandinavian Mixed. Sebastian Soderberg. He had an 8-shot lead starting the day with 18 holes to play. He eventually, I think, ended up shooting 76 and kept missing short putts. And he totally horseshoed a putt on the 18th green to force a playoff from about 3 feet. Tough luck. Oof. Live Golf did Houston this week. And I went to look at the leaderboard at one point, and hang on, let me see if I can find this. If it still says this, I hope it does, so I can. Oh nope, it's changed back to golf, but louder. Fucking losers. I'll just put it in front of the screen. This is what the screenshot. It's not gonna. Oh, there we go. It's going down in Houston, is what it says. For real? God, you guys are such fucking losers. Here's the other one. Flushing at Golf, who is totally on the Live payroll. They just have to be. I mean, all these Live bots on Twitter have to be on the payroll. So Flushing at Golf tweets, Patrick Reed hasn't won anywhere in the world since 2021, but he's just taken the solo lead in his home event of Live Golf Houston. He's got great support of family and friends out there this week. It would be a huge win for him. Family, huh? Family, huh? Flushing at golf? Sure. I'm sure there was lots of Patrick Reed's family out and about at the event. Not like he's ever had his family kicked out the course before. So Jesus, like are they so stupid that like, I mean, I guess there are. There's fucking people that believe it. And I mean, fine. If you don't like live golf, whatever. I don't care. Doesn't hurt my feelings, but man, those people are dumb. I think that's everything. We got the US Open this week. I'm hoping to do a live show or two. I know I've said that quite a bit lately, and it's never come to fruition. So I'm hoping I'm going to follow through on it this time. I've tried to get some people prepared for it out ahead of time. But yeah, my official pick, Scottie Scheffler, wins the U.S. Open. I believe Jeff Slanovic, when I texted him about it, he said, be prepared for me to say that Scottie will not win. So I think Scottie wins. Jeff does not. We'll just leave you with that. Next up on OWH albums, Yourself or Something Like It. Or someone, I butcher the name of this album all the time. Yourself or Someone Like You by Matchbox 20. Matchbox 20. This album came out in 1996. This was another album that was just, I think this was in my house as a cassette tape. I'm 99% sure. Actually, I'm not 99% sure. I'm 100% sure now that I think about it. We had this as a cassette tape, and I remember putting it into, we had a 1991 Jeep Cherokee that this cassette tape went into that tape player. And then I actually had one of those tape player things that you would plug in, that you could then plug into a CD player at first, and then eventually you plugged it into your iPod, into the earbud hole, so you could play your iPod or a CD player through a tape player. But yeah, this was just an album that was around my house. My brother must have got it, and it was just always there, and it's super popular. I'm just doing a little double check research. This album only sold 610 copies in its first week. It has now sold more than 15 million copies worldwide. Certified platinum 12 times by the Recording Industry Association of America. I believe this is Matchbox 20's first album, if I'm not mistaken. Whoopsies. Yeah, first album they've released. They released an album just last year. How about that? They've released 5 albums. They released 3 albums and then kind of went on a little bit of a hiatus when. Wait a second. That's not right, because there should be another album in there, because there was a big album. What? What's going on here? I don't believe they didn't release an album in like 2005? You could have sworn Matchbox 20 released an album in like 2005. 2005, 2006. What was that? What they released then? Hang on, I got to do a little research here, because there was a thing that came out. There was a bunch of popular songs. There was the one, How Far We've Come, yeah. The group reunited with the release of their retrospective album, Exile on Main Street. Why is that not considered one of their regular albums? Oh, there's only 7 songs on it. Have been in hiatus since 2005 when Adam Gaynor left them. In 2004, remaining group members reunited to do a compilation album and ended up recording 7 new songs over the course of one session for the first time. Every member of the group worked on songwriting. All 7 of the songs that were members of Matchbox 20 at first for the group. Oh, interesting. So this was like a thing. Yeah, How Far We've Come, All Your Reasons, These Hard Times. Interesting. I did not know that it was a compilation album. You learn something new every day, folks. That's what you come to Ole Walls House for, to learn a little something new. Yeah, so this album, like I said, cassette tape, released in October of 1996. They changed the name at the last second. Rob Thomas and Paul Doucette were at a women's musical not women, it was a single woman, performing at Cafe Largo, when the singer said, "This song is for you or someone like you." And they loved the phrase so much that they changed the album's title, despite the fact that 3,500 copies of the album had already been printed with the original title, Woodshed Diaries. So I'd love to get my hands on a Woodshed Diaries. As is the theme with most of these, this is a low skip album. I'm not that into Busted. Everything else I will listen to. It has, obviously 3 a.m., Real World, Long Day, Push are the biggest hits off this CD. Hang is an incredibly great song, I think, and I think the best song on the CD, bar none, is Back to Good. I don't know why the one memory I have of Back to Good is coming back from a Towanda High School volleyball game in Williamson. I was riding in my little black truck. I was driving. I had a couple of guys with me, Jesse Chesla and Mike Blumenauer, and we were just Back to Good came across my iPod, and we just all belted it out as we were driving back down to Towanda. That night, another guy we know, Pat Connect, smoked deer right behind us. The deer came running out, and I think Mike Blumenauer was sitting in the back of this truck that had a jump seat. So not a real. I mean, he rode an hour in this fucking jump seat. And so he's like, "Holy shit, there goes a deer!" And then, bam, the car right behind us smoked it. So we turned around. Happens to be a kid we knew. It was just a year older than us and just got out of high school. And this deer's just laying on the road, but not dead. And we're like, "Oh, this deer's fucked up. Everybody's okay." Next thing you know, a cop comes rolling in right down from the police station. Cop comes rolling in, and there's, 4 17 to 18, 19-year-olds standing around in 2 cars. And he's like, "What's going on?" He's like, "Oh, there was this deer." He's like, "Everyone okay?" Next thing you know, he's like, "Well, we got to put this deer out of its murder." He pulls out his piece, and he's going to take this deer out. And so we're all scrambling for our old flip phones. We're like, "Oh, we're going to get the greatest video ever." It was going to be the grainiest, darkest shit. And then all of a sudden, and that deer fucking hopped up and sprinted off. Ruined it. Anyway, back to Matchbox 20. So yeah, just incredible. Real World's awesome. Long Day, 3 a.m. Push, Girl Like That, Back to Good, Damn, Argue Cody. Like I said, Busted's the only one I don't really like. Shame and Hang, but like I said, Back to Good and Real World are my 2 favorite off this. So just a really good CD or cassette tape, as it may be. But yeah, that just fantastic. It was just one of those ones that was around and just my early listenings too. So next week, let's do Jason Aldean, My Kind of Party. Aldean all day. For some passing thoughts. Let's start it off with this one. Fucking Boomer absolutely smoked me. I've probably got it now. Yeah, it looks pretty good now. Boomer actually absolutely headbutted me, smoked me right in the mouth. So then, your lip goes over your teeth and you, bite your lip. Oh, hurt like a son of a bitch. Son of a bitch. Just right in the... I must have been drunk when I did this. Because I don't know why I found this so amusing myself, but I wrote down, best part about gym shorts, if you're realizing while you're putting your foot in the wrong leg, you can quickly correct it. Because I guess all I had to do was spin my pants around. So who fucking knows what I was thinking when I did that. God. Political commercials are here. It's fucking June. The elections aren't until November. It's June. We're going to have to deal with these stupid commercials for 5 fucking months. I do want to know, I don't know, maybe I know I'm different and I don't follow politics super closely, but I follow it probably more than the average person. But I want to know who watches these political commercials and it's yep, you got me right here. That was a great argument. I'm changing my mind. I'm not voting for that person, or I am voting for that person. Is that what does it, or is it just supposed to, I mean, maybe it's just supposed to drag you to the issue and have you look it up, but I just don't know, man. I don't get it. I cannot stand them. I get so fucking annoyed, even by not that I like that many politicians, but even if it's a politician I like, or the ones I'm going to vote for, I'm just I don't need to fucking see this. I just don't care. I'm going to look into it myself and do kind of my own research on it and figure out what I like and don't like. But, like, these commercials ain't fucking helping your cause any one way. Watch the movie Hitman with the roommate, the new movie that Ethan was talking about. It was okay. It was kind of odd. Pacing felt off. It was 2 hours. It didn't need to be 2 hours. It should have been like an hour and a half. The last 45 minutes or an hour were good. And the first 15 minutes, there's a lot of fluff in the middle. It loses. There's a good portion of the movie that doesn't have much of a plot to it. I feel like, I don't know. It didn't all click for me. I'm just gonna say it didn't all click. Just wasn't quite it. Another thing that didn't click to me, and the culture warriors are out there, and there's plenty of things that I have problems with, but this was a weird tweet. It was, and I didn't even save the tweet. I should have, but someone tweeted when was the last time there was a TV sitcom that the husband and wife, it was a married husband and wife, they could or could not have kids. The husband was a strong, respected man who supports the family, is in good shape. And I got thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, that doesn't really happen too often. I mean, a couple of the examples given were Modern Family with Phil Dunphy, Last Man Standing with Tim Allen. It was the last 15 years, too. So, it's definitely playing on, woke shit's invading us. And while I agree, there's plenty of shit to, disparage in those kind of movements. But I was like, but the problem is, you need, for TV shows to be fun is, the outlandishness of them and, the funny. And, this is very uncommon. And it's not just your everyday, husband and wife who are buttoned up and, got their shit together and the husband supports the family and the husband's in good shape and healthy. That doesn't make for a good TV show. Part of what's funny about, just say Modern Family, is that, they kind of joke around that the Phil Dunphy's father-in-law doesn't respect him and that he's kind of neurotic and he's kind of a dork. Or, New Girl is funny because I'm watching New Girl right now. It's funny because they're kind of a bunch of losers almost, living together when in their late 20s and in a loft. And, Nick's a bartender and Winston can't get a job. And that's the fun of shows, or what makes them interesting. You wouldn't want to do a show on my life. Not that I'm in great physical shape. But it's just the life that my wife and I live is very buttoned up. We're doing all right financially. We don't have trouble in life, but there's no funny TV show out of that. You'd watch a TV show of our life and be like, what the fuck is this shit? This sucks. So I don't know. I don't get it. So people are just always have to have something to be pissed about. And, that's just what happens sometimes. Speaking of things to get pissed at or pissed about, I got a couple here coming up. Caitlin Clark was left off the United States Olympic team. And there was just a wild explanation kind of coming around for this. So, everyone will say, oh, she's not one of the best 12 players in the WNBA currently. That's not that it matters, but who cares? That's not how you pick these teams. Diane Taurasi is 42 years old and on the team. Is she even still in the WNBA, or is she not playing? Larry Bird wasn't one of the best 12 players in the NBA when he was on the Dream Team. Neither was Magic Johnson. They left what's his face, Isaiah Thomas off that. Diana Taurasi. Do we have a stats for her? Diana Taurasi stats. Is she still in the league? She plays for the Phoenix Mercury. Where's number 3? She's a guard. She's 41 years old. Holy shit, she still averages 16 points. That's got to be good, right? They don't score that many points. She played 39 minutes in double OT and scored 20 points in her most recent game. She scored fucking 31 points on June 2nd, so she still got it. I don't know. I heard she wasn't one of the best. I figured her stats were going to be much worse. But and I'm not even saying she shouldn't be on the team, because she's probably one of the most well-known WNBA players. She probably should be on the team. But let's not act like this is anything other than these fucking women are jealous of Caitlin Clark, who's the only woman that has ever brought real attention to the WNBA. Here's what was said about why they didn't bring her. So, per C. Brennan Sports, is that Christine Brennan at CBS Sports? Team USA veterans were concerned about how Caitlin Clark's millions of fans would react to her likely limited playing time on a stacked Olympic roster. Also, the women's U.S. basketball team has won every gold medal for like the last 6 or 7 or 8 Olympics, and they don't are rarely ever challenged. Now this is a quote. 2 other sources, both longtime USA basketball veterans with decades of experience in the women's game, told USA Today Sports Friday that concern over how Clark's millions of fans would react to what would likely be limited playing time on a stacked roster was a factor in the decision-making. If true, that would be an extraordinary admission of the tension that this multi-million-dollar sensation who signs autographs for dozens of children before and after every game has caused for the old guard of women's basketball. 2 people spoke on the condition of anonymity because of the sensitivity of the matter. It's only sensitive because you're keeping her off because you don't like her. It's like the pettiness and jealousy of these women in the WNBA is unbelievable. Your league makes no money, never has, over like 26 years. They lose millions of dollars. I don't know if that's finally changing. You can look at the attendance stats for Caitlin Clark. I think her games that she's playing in are averaging like 17,000 fans. The other games are averaging like 7. So it's more than double. They had to change the location of the game when they just played the DC team. They took it from whatever arena they normally played in and took it into the, it used to be the Capital One Center, wherever the Wizards and the Capitals play now. So they moved it from a small arena to a big arena, strictly because of Caitlin Clark. Like, if you want to get eyes on the women's game in the Olympics, you put Caitlin Clark on the team. If you want to be jealous, petty little bitches, you don't, and you do what you guys continue to do, and continue to act like she isn't the reason why the women's game has so much attention right now. I'm literally never going to talk about this if she's not involved. And I still don't watch. On top of that, I want to point out, but just stupid pettiness. Here's a good one. Unusual Whales just came up. You know, they have the best stuff. Unusual Whales on Instagram is a great follow. The SEC had announced that they are looking at GameStop options activity for manipulation after Roaring Kitty disclosed his option trades. This is Roaring Kitty. I think his Reddit name is Deep Fucking Value. Keith Gill, they did the movie about him that I watched just a little bit ago. For reference, U.S. Congress trades options all the time. For example, Nancy Pelosi bought NVIDIA call options before major bills and news and is up over 200% on her calls in 190 days. No SEC investigation there. The Massachusetts securities regulator is probing the trading activities of GameStop investor Keith Gill, aka Deep Fucking Value, and Roaring Kitty. Massachusetts security regulator has said they are investigating Roaring Kitty for his GameStop positions, but the Massachusetts politicians have been trading themselves. Let's check in on those fucking dorks. Representative Catherine Clark sits on the Congressional Subcommittee on Labor, Health, and Human Services. She bought shares in Hologic, a week before the U.S. Department of Health awarded the company a $119 million COVID-19 contract. She sold after the shares spiked days later. How about that? Representative Lori Trahan was months late disclosing stock sales and never faced a penalty. I'm shocked. Bill Keating was also late, failing to disclose his ROST sales and TGX buys. Seth Moulton sold $250,000 of Activision on June 13th. Later that exact day, Activision and MSFT acquisition was blocked by the U.S. FTC. Representative Clark also traded stocks before the COVID drop and bought tons of tech stocks before vaccines were announced. It's incredible. Like, these guys are fucking criminals. And then they have the fucking audacity to try and fucking investigate other people. The biggest criminals in our country are in the federal and state governments where you live. There is zero doubt in my mind about that. We'll end on a positive note. Well, it starts negative, but it goes positive. Man, I have been on the fucking struggle bus with my golf game. I'm driving it like an idiot. I've been hitting it poorly. I can't fucking chip. I've been putting all right. But everything else, it's just been a fucking debacle. And it's so frustrating. And I've started to figure a couple things out. My alignment got so bad. It's like something fucking as stupid as your alignment gets really, really complicated to fix. I found my alignment and then kind of my weight distribution front and back was a little bad. And I'm just grinding out there, just trying to fucking play better golf. It's finally starting to come, but I went through a real stretch where I wasn't even fucking sniffing breaking 80. It's fucking so frustrating. You just stand up there and you're like, I don't know what the fuck's going to happen. Ball could go left, it could go right, it could go up, it could go down, it could fucking go backwards for all I know. That said, I played first off Sunday morning. There's not a better feeling in the world than that, man. There's just no one in front of you, except for a couple assholes who jumped out in the back nine and cut me off, and I had to wait the last couple holes. But, I got out there at like 6:15, done by, 8:15. And there's maybe nothing better in the world than putts on a fresh cut green. No one else has been on it but you. You got a putt for birdie. I didn't have many of those. Actually, the only birdie I made, I hit it like a fucking foot. So I didn't even get to putt it. But I made a couple putts that day. But there's nothing like it. Fresh cut green, and you roll a putt, and it's just so smooth. The ball just rolls. You can see it toppling end over end if you have a line or anything on it. Most balls do. And I was playing one of those. I had one of those Callaway balls in my bag that has the thing. And I put it so it's just white when I look at it. But then you see it rolling. It's like, there's nothing better than that feeling. Absolutely nothing better than a feeling of being the first off, playing a fresh cut green. As frustrating as golf is, there's some times that it's so fucking beautiful. It's perfect. All right, let's go wrap this thing up. Closing time, everybody. Just want to start off with saying thank you again for watching and listening to another week. I appreciate all the support. I appreciate you watching, listening. Please, if you could, comment, rate, review, subscribe, share, do all that stuff. So, got a bunch of fun stuff coming up. We got U.S. Open this week. The guards are back in action. Really appreciate Ethan coming on and talking to us. It really brings a wealth of knowledge on baseball that I could never even envision touching. So, appreciate all that. So, fun stuff next week. Be on the lookout for live shows. I'm really going to try and do that. I know I've said that a couple times recently. I'm really going to try and get at least one in. Like maybe Friday and then Sunday is kind of what's working in my mind. Hopefully if I can get a couple people to do it. Maybe if I can, I'll just do it myself. But yeah. So till next week. Peace.